Yo, what's going on, guys? Jay here. Welcome to Talking Hip Hop. We are today reviewing Denzel Curry's newest album, King of the Mischievous South, Volume 2. First off, let me shout the socials. Check out the IG, talking.hiphop. Check out the YouTube, which you're watching right now. Be sure to like, subscribe, all that stuff. Appreciate you being here. Go over to Spotify and check out the podcast, The Talking Hip Hop Show. Link will be in description. New episodes every Wednesday. This is my first time doing a full-length album review video about Denzel Curry on this channel, and he is one of my favorite artists ever. He is a top 3 favorite artist of mine ever, to put it quite simply. Melt My Eyes, See Your Future was one of my favorite albums to come out in a long time. Oh my god, what a beautiful project. And this huge switch up from Zell just demonstrates and encapsulates his versatility and why, in my mind, he is head and shoulders above so many other rappers in the game, because he comes through with a more trap oriented project with way less introspective, way less conversational and conscious and impressive overall lyricism. But that doesn't mean there's any less effort or intentionality that went into this album compared to Melt My Eyes. Yes, it's not super heady and conceptual, but Denzel has still got a point here, and he makes some of the best genuine, authentic, and just fucking hard trap music to come out, in the past couple of years. I don't know if you could see behind me, we got the walk-in poster from Melt My Eyes to Your Future. I have that album on vinyl because, again, like I said, I am such a huge fan of Zell. So I've been highly anticipating this project for a while, especially once all the features and the track list got released. I was like, okay, this is some serious shit. This is going to be some serious heat. And in my mind, Denzel did not disappoint. One thing I loved about the rollout for this album that I think other artists should take notes on this, because this really got me excited for the album. Denzel Curry released a playlist called Mischievous Radio 002 on Spotify. It had 50 songs that inspired the sound for this album. And I listened to the whole thing, it's like 3.5 hours. And not only did I discover and get to appreciate classic songs from Memphis acts like 3 6 Mafia, like Project Pat, and of course from the Dirty South, UGK, who was definitely influential on this album as well. I also get to discover plenty of new songs and artists like Kingpin Skinny Pimp, who narrates the album, like Soulja Slim, and like Slim Thug, who all have some bangers that I discovered through this playlist. And again, this is to any artist who's coming through with any album. Take notes. This is where you should be taking notes, because this got me really hyped for the album, and I think it's so cool that Denzel put songs that encapsulated his creative mindset and the sound he was trying to replicate, and he put that out there and shared with us. Having an underground Memphis legend like Kingpin Skinny Pimp narrate this album shows the type of respect that artists in that lane and who were once making music from that scene have for Denzel, and how they validate and give their stamp of authenticity to what he is doing on this project, as aforementioned acts like Juicy J and Project Pat appear on this record. Typically for an album review, I like to come in with some type of a thesis, some type of main takeaway, some type of what is the artist trying to accomplish. And like I said, this album is not very heady, it is not very conscious, so it's not like lyrically there's any type of concept going on here, but just between the sonics and aesthetics, it is clear to me that Denzel, like I said before, is paying his homage and his respects to the dirty, dark sounds of early 2000s and late 90s underground trap music that was specifically coming from Memphis, Tennessee. He clearly loves this Memphis rap style and was inspired by it, and he is also melding that sound with more modern aesthetics from the underground Florida scene, as well as Texas also has some representation in terms of the production, and also some features we'll talk about later, like Maxo Cream and that Mexican OT. But again, this is kind of a ode to the Dirty South. And again, another point to Denzel, who is currently touring with mainly Suicide Boys and also Poya, who are some of the other biggest modern rappers who really dabble and embody a modern version of this early 2000s, late 90s Memphis trap sound. They are some of the biggest artists that are out, not recreating, of course, but who have really evolved and built upon this sound. Shout out to Poya. I used to love him. Suicide Boys never really got into. But anyways, A lyric that is important here on Black Flag Freestyle featuring that Mexican OT. Yeah, I used to smart talk, but now I had to dumb it down. Denzel is pretty much saying, like, yeah, this album is not going to be as lyrically dense as some of my other works, but as we know Denzel Curry can do, he can switch between different intensities of writing styles and still make incredible music, going from Taboo to Then Drop, Zoo, and Unlocked, which are, again, lyrically and conceptually not that much compared to Taboo, but still very creatively cohesive, succinct, and sound in terms of the goal that Denzel is trying to set out with his aesthetics and with his not as much songwriting but album creation. And it is that simplistic lyrics about getting high, having a good time, and being on your gangsta shit, standing on business, mixed with the incredible productions and features, as well as the art and aesthetics associated with this project and its rollout, as well as the mixtape feel, despite this being a studio album itself, that allows Denzel to nail this type of concept he's going for and introduce this Memphis sound that he has a ton of love and respect for to a new audience and package it in a new way with his very own Denzel Curry spin on it. And the track starts with the King of the Mischievous South to intro, which again, Kingpin Skinny Pimp. All he is doing here is introducing us to the album. And like I said, him being on this project in the capacity he is a stamp of authenticity from underground Memphis. And like I said, KSPS underground Memphis legend himself, from what I'm able to find online. I personally don't know that much about him, but he's got a couple bangers I've heard. Big stamp of approval right on the front, right out of the gate. And then we get into what I would call the slowest and least energetic track on this album, Ultra Shit. This track features a very spacey and very psychedelic instrumental, which is underscored by some Memphis type drum patterns, and has very distorted vocal deliveries from a Denzel Curry and featured artists from Washington State, Kenyatta, who kill it on both of their verses, and the chorus as well is very catchy. Kenyatta I've never particularly heard of before, but he has a great verse on this song, which again is very spacey, very psychedelic, and brings you into this world, introduces you to the soundscape of KOTMS 2 very well. Zell brings some fast flows about smoking weed and threatening the rap game with his Glock, which he mentions having a Glock a lot on this album, and pretty much setting the Ultra Ground mission statement, which again, Ultra Ground is a pretty common phrase you've seen in the rollout for this album and across this album, which is they being Denzel and these other ultra rappers who appear on this project, that they are here to make music that will last forever and cannot be replicated. The next track, Set It, is our first real shout to Houston with a feature from Maxo Cream, who is a kind of underground Houston rapper. I feel like he's at that point where he's bubbling between being an underground trap artist and verging onto the mainstream, not Billboard Hot 100 mainstream, but you know, he probably has over 1 million monthly listeners on Spotify. I've been a fan of him for a couple of years. Great trap artist. But anyway, we get a anthemic instrumental with a redundant but repeatable chorus, and some very intense flows from Denzel himself, which feel like they were unvaulted from 2015, 2016, that ULT, that 32 Zell era, where he brings some pretty elite lyricism for what he's doing at least, and that continues throughout the album, where Denzel's lyrics aren't very complex, but he's got good one-liners, he's got good similes, and those very basic content matter. It's still got that Denzel swagger to it that makes him so great. And Maxo Cream is also doing his thing here. He loves rapping about guns, and he raps a lot about guns here. He has his hard demeanor on this track. And yeah, this is a solid fucking banger, like every song on this album, to be honest. Now we're moving on to Hot One, which was the first single in the rollout for this album. I've loved this track since its release. Denzel has a solid hook, and there is a great chantable, distorted pre-chorus here, which is a good shout to that Memphis inspiration despite Denzel's Floridian roots. And this song features New York rapper A$AP Ferg and North Carolina Tia Corinne, who both bring their own type of energy and charisma to this track that fit in with Denzel so well despite being very different. Tia Corinne they all have short verses, I'll say, first of all, but Tia Corinne has a very nasally type of delivery. See you, I might catch you with the 45. Like, it's very high pitched, kind of. I know a lot of people don't like it. I really enjoy her verse, very catchy. A$AP Ferg also very energetic. He's doing his thing. He's got the dog bark ad libs. He's got these yes that he starts dropping like halfway throughout the song, leading up to his verse being the last, and he comes in with this fast-paced energy, kind of rapping his ass off for, you know, the 30 seconds he has, just with some funny bars. And again, that New York energy Ferg can bring, where he's really just shouting into the track and rapping hard. And I mean, yeah, this has been one of my favorite songs of the year. Moving on to the next track, which was the second single released in the rollout for this album, Black Flag Freestyle, featuring Mexican OT. That Mexican OT, I should say. In my opinion, this is the best track on the fucking album, guys. This is going to be a song of the year contender for me. Expect to see this on my, Spotify replay in a couple months, because I love this track, guys. Whoo, is this an earworm? This has one of Denzel's best choruses in probably his whole career. I've been known to spend a lot like Bob Bucket of Price is Right. Being broke my kryptonite, being rich my superpower, smoking on these bitter. In my hood, we call them sour. Again, like Denzel, like conceptually is not saying anything too crazy, especially on this chorus, but it's just the way he delivers it, the swagger he has, and just the, like, again, it's the type of similes and metaphors he uses, like describing, some people like to say their weed smells like piss, but instead he says it smells like a golden shower, which is just unique and sounds more elegant. He says he likes to spend a lot like Bob Barker. Every rapper likes to spend a lot, but you don't hear a lot of Bob Barker allusions. 187 Ricky and Payday deliver also one of the best instrumentals on this album, because this beat is eerie, it is high voltage, there is some great type of haunting scream that is sampled going on, and it is, again, one of the best beats on the album, if not the best. Super unique, and it fits the vibe very well. On this track, Zell is reminding you that he is a South Florida gangster and playboy. And again, shout out to 187 Ricky and Payday, because I love the way they cut out the beat when Denzel is, towards the end of his verse, and he's saying, "Put me in the firm, look at what I earned." The way the beat cuts out when he drops those lines, again, he's not saying anything too crazy, but it gives him that type of final boss, just super gangsta aura. And yeah, it just comes across super menacing and badass. And that Mexican OT probably has the best feature on this album. I'm not gonna lie. That Mexican OT, I listened to his album that came out this year, like a month ago. It's good. I talked about it a little bit on one of my podcast episodes, I believe. It's nothing, it's good, but I feel like this verse right here is a standout verse performance, standout anything from him. He matches Denzel's flow and energy and brings some badass bars and hilarious punchlines of his own, dropping lines like, "I'm so caught up with a Burberry," or he talks about how he's having beef with alligators because he killed his cousin and turned they bitch ass into boots, which, when I heard this bar, I think it's really funny to think about. Is he talking about one in particular alligator he has beef with because he has, killed his cousin and turned him into alligator boots? Or does he have crocodile boots and he's talking about how they are distant cousins? There's a couple of different ways you can interpret his bars here. Then we get the head crack interlude, which Black Flag Freestyle bleeds into perfectly. And Kingpin Skinny Pimp is talking violent and threatening his ops on this brief interlude, and that leads perfectly into G's Up. We get a very chantable one-phrase chorus that fits this trap beat very well and fits the type of sound idea that Denzel is going for. Denzel's first verse is very short, like a lot of his verses are on this album, to be honest, but they contain a multitude of flow switches, which, again, a lot of his verses do on this album. It's very impressive and keeps you entertained throughout the duration of the song. 2 Chainz's verse fits the mold of the song as well. 2 Chainz, of course, hailing from Atlanta, being a vet in the game at this point, and he's just got some easygoing bars like chanting "mosh pit, mosh pit, mosh pit" at one point, or just classic simple 2 Chainz bars like "say you want a piece of me, you know I got the toppings on me." We also get some more Texas love here from Mike Dimes on this song as well, who delivers, again, one of the best verses on this album, I'm not gonna lie. He brings a lot of great energy to this verse with some raunchy and risky bars, like comparing the color of his white car to being Ku Klux, and he fit perfectly over this hard Memphis type banger. We get another interlude, the Lunatic interlude from Kingpin Skinny Pimp, where this is just a short track with very distorted vocals and is reminiscent of Suicide Boys, and it leads perfectly into the next track, Sked. Now, Sked was a single that Denzel released last year and was not initially part of this album rollout, and I've been jacking this song since before this project dropped. But then we get the new version on the album, which also is a feature from Project Pat, which, again, is a stamp of that authenticity from a Memphis legend. And we get an intense banger here produced by Charlie Heat. And this track has the most booming bass on the album. It is very fast-paced. This track also came out alongside Blood on My Nikes, which features Juicy J. That track is underrated. Go stream that if you haven't heard it. Main, let me get the blood off my Nikes. Denzel brings his aggressive, shit-talking energy on this verse and on the chorus of this song, with some clever bars saying tell it like a joke because I don't stutter. His simple flows and bars here fit perfectly into this aggressive, almost hateful banger where Denzel, this is the type of shit he puts on and blasts in his car when he is spinning the block. You could tell this is some of that intense music. This is a big gym song for me. This is a big gym song for me. This whole album I've been listening to in the gym. I've been listening to on runs because it is perfect for that. It dials you and it gets you fucking hyped up. It is like pre-workout. Kenny Mason matches the energy here with some, again, aggressive bars, some fast flows, has some good alliteration and wordplay. Ain't on safety press to coverage. Who in the fuck he think he pressing? Trying to convince the press you tough will get you pussies pressed in public. Give me the loot. Project Pat features here is also really not anything crazy, to be honest, but he does that very signature, very staple Project Pat flow and that inflection and that delivery where he's talking about her face bowling in Indiana, something like a pizza. And again, that is that stamp of authenticity. Now we're moving on to the track Cole Pimp. This is the most elegant track on the album, courtesy of the instrumental from Hollywood Cole. Now this, I know I said Black Flag Freestyle, but this is probably the best produced track on the record. And it features a great luxurious selection of strings and piano, which get underscored by a hypnotic drum pattern. Ty Dolla $ign has a beautifully sung chorus, which is again another standout feature and leads us greatly into Juicy J's feature here, which is also again another stamp of authenticity from a Memphis legend. Zell gives us another shorter verse here with some fast flows and flow switches, as well as a handful of sexual innuendos. And the elegance and uniqueness of this song on the track, let's make it a major highlight. Then we move on to the track Wishlist, which I've seen getting praise online for being a more conceptual or lyrically focused verse from Denzel here, where he talks about warning young rappers that, the groupies who come to their shows that are showing interest in them are going to be more interested in money and material things than them as a person. And that is definitely the point of the verse, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? Denzel's giving his 2 cents on the matter. I just think it's not hypocritical because Denzel does not really contribute to this culture. But when you look at hip-hop right now, especially popular hip-hop, people like Drake, I don't even going to say anyone else, but we talk about Quavo, Travis Scott, 21 Savage, Playboi Carti, all these other mega popular rappers, Gunna, Lil Baby, Future, especially Future should be number 2 with this, who rap so often about exchanging material things and cash for sexual favors from women. So I just think I think it's not the best commentary from Denzel because women having a wish list when they approach rappers in a sexual type of way is the culture right now and is created by other bigger, more powerful, more popular rappers in the game and is very popularized and it's crazy that it's popularized, honestly, because it's borderline prostitution in my mind, but it's very much popularized and accepted among the hip-hop community. So Denzel, warning rappers about that, it works, and the verse is good, and I like his rapping, but he really should be warning rappers to stop talking about buying bitches Birkin bags for fucking. Like, honestly, it's just deplorable activity. Drake has really done a number on the rap game and on hip-hop culture as a whole with how often he raps about pimping out women with fancy designer clothes and dinners and then dumping them back to the streets or wherever they're from after they do a sexual act and Drake or whatever rapper receives a sexual favor. It is very much despicable activity, to be honest, but that's just my 2 cents on the matter because this song is a banger anyways, right? It goes hard. That's just the commentary. I feel like the crime doesn't fit the bill what Denzel's going for here, right? It's the culture's issue. It's not the groupies issue, in my mind. We also get a great verse from Pennsylvania rapper Armani White here, another standout verse on the album, who shows a lot of personality in his different inflections and his different flows throughout this verse and ends up being another major highlight on the tape. Then we move on to Hit the Floor. Hit the Floor is probably my least favorite track here. This features Ski Mask, the Slum God, and it sounds like it could have been on 11th Dimension with the super hard and intense bass heavy, kind of video game-esque as well, beat going on here. The Hit the Floor chantable chorus. I mean, yeah, this is definitely a mosh pit type of song. We get Denzel's weakest verse here, and Ski Mask, the Slum God, we get a typical performance from him where he's using unique but also overused cultural metaphors that that was my biggest issue with 11 Dimension, to be honest, where I feel like he reuses so much of his good metaphors that they don't have any sting, any zing. Like the first 2 tracks on 11th Dimension, he had In the Game Like Sega bar. having not super original sounding bars here, it's whatever, because, it's not really the goal of the album. But his flows are nice. He has cringy bars like, I'm sick like I hit too much Nick, which is just corny. But yeah, I mean, this track isn't bad by any means. It's a cool Florida link up, and again, it fits the vibe here. And this is the song that is the biggest example of Denzel taking inspiration from underground Memphis rap and fusing it with underground Florida rap. I should specify underground Memphis rap from the late 90s, early 2000s, and fusing it with, underground Florida rap of the last decade. Then we move on to the last track, Hoodlums. This was the third single. This came out the week the album was released. We get a feature from Play That Boy Zay, as well as A$AP Rocky. A$AP Rocky, of course, one of my favorite rappers, if you haven't guessed. His verse here is good. Honestly, I was a little underwhelmed, but also I think it's really cool that he is maybe the one rapper who comes in with like any type of notable content matter, where he's got, not only does he have fun and fast flows that are impressive, like he brings that classic Rocky swagger to this verse, but he also raps a lot about being super hated and embracing the hate, still being that guy with the most swag, right? Like that's why Rocky is such a loved and respected artist, because of all that confidence and charisma that he oozes. And here he raps about a lot of the hate he faces and embracing it and saying that, they'll never love you, so why shouldn't you love yourself? Obviously, he doesn't say that bar for bar, but that's the essence of his verse. Play That Boy Zay has a memorable first verse and a pretty solid chorus. His delivery is like muffled or distorted, whatever you want to say, and with the instrumental is grimy, and it fits the album very well. Again, I enjoy this track, although it is, again, one of the weakest. Denzel's performance here is good as well, but again, one of the weaker tracks on this honestly great album. Then we get the KOTMS Volume 2 outro, which again is just Kingpin Skinny Pimp. He closes us out, and yeah, overall, this is like a 34-minute listen. There's 10 songs here. This is fucking great, guys. This is a great album. Again, it's pretty devoid of any type of meaningful content, but there's solid lyricism and wordplay. There's incredible production. The concept that Denzel is going for, he executes perfectly here, pays his respects to the sound that influenced him coming up incredibly well. His own rendition is great. The cast of features he brought together was eclectic, but worked together really well. I really enjoyed the fact that there was a lot of up-and-coming rappers who were on here, and then you had the vets like Project Pat and Juicy J, who are here for authenticity purpose, and then you had the vets who are not as veteran as those guys, but who still fit this certain type of vibe, like 2 Chainz and like A$AP Rocky and like A$AP Ferg, who fit in this soundscape very well. It is very cohesive. It is very well produced. Denzel goes hard as hell on all his verses. He uses so many different flows. And if you can't tell, I love this album. It's definitely going to be a top 10 album of the year contender for me. Honestly, I'm going to be honest, guys, coming in. On the, enjoyment rating, this is 5 fingers. This is 5 fingers. This is probably my favorite, not like the best, but this is probably my favorite album I've heard all year. There's definitely some recency bias coming in with that for sure. It's still like less than 10 days probably since release, and I'm a huge Denzel fan, so definitely some bias going on here. But I really love this project. And on the overall rating, probably going to be giving this a 7, maybe an 8. I have a hard time giving this an 8 just because of the lack of lyrical depth, because I would say Zoo's a 7, right? But I can't imagine myself putting this is definitely higher than Zoo, but also is it on the level of Imperial? Not quite, but I still love this album, and for what it is damn near perfect. Denzel, like I said, knocks off everything on the checklist he had going into this album. He killed it. Shout out to him. If you have not heard King of the Mischievous South Volume 2 yet, go listen, go stream it. You do not want to miss this project. But anyways, I appreciate you guys tuning in. Everyone who is here, I appreciate you. I hope you're doing well. Be sure to hit the subscribe, the bell, the like, the comment, all that shit. I already shouted my other socials. So with that being said, I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.